Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Loreweek. I'm your host, the freshly shaven Lore Dude. Make sure to always shave before a stream. That's actually not true, I don't do that. I do stream a lot. Shave. I do shave a lot. I stream a lot, too. I stream about 8 hours a day, 7 days a week. Although that's changing soon. Soon I will never stream again. Hi. Well, while I wait for people to stream in, let's see what's going on in Hungary right now. Let's see. Oh my god, spoilers! I am curious, though. Looks like 21 laps to go. And... I'm not going to say anything out loud, because I am very anti-spoilers, but... that is interesting. Not surprising, though. Good morning, everyone. So I know this is going to sound weird, but I'm going to mention this in the random news section, because I don't actually have a lot to say about this. So for those of you not aware, there is an organization out there called the ESA, I think? Hang on, let me double check that, make sure I'm saying the right thing. Yep, that's right, ESA, Entertainment Software Association. It's put together by If and But and Rex Simus. The two of them, I have the wrong document up. By the way, really quick, Rax, since you are here, this is what prompted me on this. I assume both you and the other Kingdom Hearts people who have been are covering themselves on this and are aware of this. Like, I don't anticipate too many problems with you guys, but I thought I'd mention it. Just on the off chance that you guys weren't aware. If and But. Warhammer Mechanicus. So noted. Thank you again, as always, If and But, for the sub. Okay, good. Just wanted to make sure. Yeah, doxing is not cool. I know, shocking, but it's not cool. Doxing is never cool. There is no everyday reason to dox. In fact, I would argue there's not even really a good reason to ever dox someone. Like, not unless we get into theoretical extremes, So for those of you not aware, the ESA, they're the ones who are basically the lobby group for the video game industry as a whole. And they are currently lobbying that loot boxes are cool. If you dox yourself on purpose, that's on you. If you dox yourself on accident, that's awful. But anyways, so they doxed an inordinate number of people. I think the total list is something like, what, 2,000? It's huge. I'm trying this new tea. I'm not sure what I think of it yet. It's Yorkshire blend, if anybody knows what that is. Excuse me. It's surprise research. Yeah, it's an absolutely gargantuan number of people. For those of you not aware, ESA obviously runs E3, and E3 has been doing another of its down dips. For those of you not aware, E3 actually has already died in the past. That's a thing that happened, and then E3 came back, and it looks like E3 is on its way out the door again already, and then this happened. Let's see what happens next year as a consequence of this. But yeah. Some people are like, "Mwahaha, this is deserved, bwahaha," and all I gotta say is, what is wrong with you people? This is messed up. Harassment has already started happening as a consequence of this, and people are having to deal with some very unpleasant things. The actual current policy, if you happen to be one of those people who was doxxed, is to call the police immediately. I don't mean that as a joke. To call the police and inform them, my personal info has been leaked. Please be aware. Here's where I live. Here's what I do. This is not cool in any sense of the word. Unlike Mr. Floyd Pinkerton, who is very cool. but not as cool as the person whose name I can't pronounce. 'Cause I don't know how to pronounce it. But not as cool as the person whose name I can't pronounce. 'Cause I don't know how to pronounce it. 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 'Cause which is Uchiha Daisuke. Daisuke. I still screwed it up. I am terrible. But both of them are very cool and very awesome. Thank you, both of you, for your subs. Much appreciated. And I put that down towards Thronebreaker and Dragon Quest Builders 2. I actually agree, by the way. I think at this point E3 shouldn't exist as it is. I'm okay with there being an investor conference. That makes sense to me from a financial side of things. But an investor conference would be a very different approach to what we have right now for E3. It would be much less spectacle, and it would be much more boring meetings in a room kind of a situation, you know, with investment firm heads and I can never think of the term, but it's like the major representatives from the investor groups and the actual companies and just discussing, here's what we're looking at for the next quarter, blah, 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 you know, that kind of stuff. That's what I think E3 should turn into, and I mean that sincerely. We have PAXs. We have multiple PAXs at this point. Several companies are doing their own thing. The Nintendo Direct feature is an amazing idea, which works really, really well, and other companies should do it. I don't think E3 should exist anymore. I mean, don't mistake me. I love making fun of it every year. The only answer I have to that, Hazardous, is it's a way of basically ensuring validity, ensuring that they are who they are, and keeping track of the people who are, you know, business people. So they can, for example, let's use a hypothetical. Let's say that Hazardous is a journalist for IGN. And let's say that ESA is like, okay, well, let's make sure you're you. So first they get that. And second of all, they're like, okay, we want to send you, you know, a video game package. We want to send you something that they're interested in, you know, blah, 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 that kind of a thing. It's mostly the verification thing, though. And honestly, that kind of thing is actually pretty normal. Of all of the news that we got, the news that they had the addresses was the least surprising to me. So, BlizzCon, that'll be fun this year. Anyways, long story short, that sucks. There's nothing else for that. There is already a class action lawsuit that is being drafted that will be revealed, by all accounts, tomorrow against the ESA. And I have to admit, that one makes me tilt my head a little bit, because I tend to be anti-class action lawsuit. And I know that sounds like a strange statement, but it's because in my experience, most of those are just money grabs, percentage-wise. And in truth, this one probably is a money grab too, if we're being honest with ourselves. Because it's not like they can undo the damage, right? It's not like they can fix this. But I am hopeful, for once, that this one actually goes through. Because, to be perfectly blunt, the ESA needs to recompense those people literally financially in order to accommodate the aggravation that they are having to go through. And of course, it's a slap on the wrist, which is something that's needed in this kind of a situation. So, get some money to the people affected, slap the company on the wrist, and tell them to wake the hell up. Like, I'm not even going to go into full details in this about how, you know, I mean, it was up for a freaking month, and they were warned about it and didn't do anything about it. That is actually called, that's the legal definition of negligence at that point. That might be the legal definition of gross negligence, depending on how you want to slice that one. That is not cool. Moving on to slightly more horrible news. No, I'm kidding. How many of you have heard about the Titanic 2? This one amuses me. They're making a Titanic 2. I don't mean the movie, by the way. I mean the ship. They're making a cruise ship. They're making a Titanic 2. I actually had a discussion about this with one of my friends. And he mentioned that it made a degree of sense. Because they need to drop the stigma on the Titanic. And I actually kind of agree with that, as absolutely weird as that sounds. Like, it needs to be turned into a non-issue. I mean, how many works of fiction across how much cultural consciousness for the last, like, 50 years, that's an exaggeration, the last 20 years, has centered around something called the Titanic being a big disaster that crashes. Doctor Who even did that. And everyone in chat's reactions is just making my point for me. It is such a commonly... It's literally shorthand for big project that crashes. Right? Yes, and it's taken the exact same route, too, which, again, makes sense if they're trying to break the stigma. We'll see. It's supposed to launch, I think, next year? Next year or the year after, I forget which. God, we're almost in the 2020s, guys. We almost could say we're living in the 20s. Yeah, I was going to say, if this one sinks as well, oh my god. But no, what's more likely to happen is that's when the aliens will invade. Under my direction, obviously. Ghostbusters, the video game, is getting a remaster. Woo! Wait, didn't Ghostbusters, the video game, come out 10 years ago? So we're getting a remaster for a game that came out in 2009. Now, in the interest of fairness, there's a reason I'm bringing this up. I'm actually all in favor, really, of remasters as a concept, as long as they don't take attention away from other development. Because, well, I mean, it's the same reason why I want so many games on the Switch, basically, right? Because there are Wii U games and Wii games I would love to have on my Switch, so it's not a complete pain in the arse to actually go and play them, right? But I do have to admit, it's getting a little bit weird that we're at the point where we're getting remasters of games that don't really need them. I also kind of wish they'd stop using the term remaster, because by all accounts this is not a remaster, it's a straight port. Which, again, I'm okay with, it's just, that's not a remaster. And even a remaster is just a minor polishing, as opposed to actually doing anything real. Like, I'm sorry. A remaster generally does not involve real work. There are exceptions. There are exceptions. There's a book called Iwata-san, which is getting... and I only bring this up. Some of you probably have already heard of this. It is a book about Mr. Iwata, and it has, contains quite a bit... fair enough, Taito. It contains quite a bit of actual information from him and quotes from him and blah, blah, blah. It's basically a book about him and his life and his impact on the industry. Now, that's not news. The news part is apparently there is a lot of work being put into it via the, and I have this written down here, the Tuttle Mori Agency, that they are actually going to be translating this into other languages outside of Japan, which... that's the news part. The fact that they are actually going to be pushing this into other countries. I think that's awesome, personally. Like, I think that's great. And I am hopeful that that will be an awesome thing. And I will probably pick up that book myself. Agreed, Blue Wolf Alex. I could also point to the StarCraft Remastered as a good example of that. There are exceptions, like I said. By the way, good morning, everyone. Sorry, I just realized I didn't do my usual good morning. Good morning! Good morning, moon. Good morning, sun. Good morning, Platy. Wait, why are you in space? Yeah, agreed on that point, Rex. That's why I was just kind of weirding out about the Ghostbusters remaster. It's like, well, Okay, so, real quick, before I move on to my first actual topic, I want to share something. So, someone who shall remain nameless, totally not my sister, got me a gift. On the off chance that's not readable, let's try that again. Now, for those of you not aware, and I wouldn't blame you, I have a feature every other Friday called Hors d'oeuvres. Some of these look so good. And I just want to make everything in here. And I've actually already, from my perspective, reached the point at which the hors d'oeuvres are trying to make Warcraft dishes. Because I cook to lose weight, Taitu. Come on, man. So the idea here is I've been trying to make Warcraft-themed dishes. In fact, the way I've been doing it, and Third and I have already talked about this, is that I've done like an orc dish, and then there's going to be a human dish, a night elf dish, a tauren dish, all the playable races, basically. And trying to make something based on each of those playable races. Now, that's just me making stuff up and trying to make a thing. So for any of you... maybe, Rax. There's a lot of recipes in here. For any of you who actually care and actually pay attention to... No, the tauren one's actually vegetarian. And in fact, I've already done it. It's vegetarian chili. For anybody who actually watched the hors d'oeuvres and actually care, I basically have a question for you. Should I continue to just kind of make up random crap on my own, which may or may not succeed? Or should I take some... inspiration and or directly use recipes from this. Now, I will admit I've already used an inspiration from this. Where was it? For something. It wasn't for a Warcraft dish. I didn't even record it, but it gave me an idea for how to do spaghetti. And I know what you're thinking. What? Well, hear me out. What I did, so I got, I want to say it was a tablespoon of oil, vegetable oil, and put that in the pan and put the burner to medium, and I added about 1 total onion, just chopped up, along with red pepper flakes, the kinds you find on pizza, red pepper flakes and pepper, a little bit of salt, and I added something else to that mix. What else did I add to that mix? Garlic, that's what I added. 1 full clove of garlic, minced. And I just kind of let that kind of stir around and mix with itself for a good 5 or 6 minutes or so. Then added in, basically the spaghetti sauce and the meat, which I'd been cooking on the side, and mixed that together. And it basically came out as it's kind of lightly spiced, but it's a very noticeable spice. Like every bite is spicy, but has no spice aftertaste, really. Because I don't know why, but it tasted really good, and that was inspired by one of the dishes in there. So that's kind of what I mean by inspired, because that didn't actually follow a recipe. That was just me making up stuff based on what they were talking about. So I'm seeing a universal interest in taking inspiration rather than actually doing. So cool, that works for me. Again, if anybody watching the VOD wants to comment on that, feel free. As always, I'll watch all my comments. What was the other show? So I should explain something else show-related. So we're going to be streaming a game called Judgment. Not Judgment or Perfect Judge, but just Judgment. We're going to be streaming that today. It's right over there. It's actually ready to go. Now, the idea here is once we finish that game, and I have no idea how long the game is, but once we finish that game, I'm going to be taking a period of time off from streaming in order to concentrate on the YouTube side of things. The general intention is to take roughly 1 week every month over the next couple of months and work on YouTube stuff and try to get the YouTube side of my show done because I work 2 jobs. Now, I don't know how successful that will be. And that's part of why I mentioned this. This is mostly an experiment on my part. Last year, some of you may remember, I had to take about 2.5 months off from streaming to get all the YouTube stuff done. And that was just 2.5 months of me, destroying my ability to function as a human being in order to get all that YouTube stuff recorded. We may have to do that again. We'll see. But yeah, if it gets to about the end of August, or this is August, the end of September, excuse me. If we get to the end of September and I don't feel like I've gotten enough work done, then yeah, we're going to go ahead and take basically October and November just off from streaming, and we're going to focus on YouTube stuff because I need to work on YouTube stuff. I need to get that done. So, FYI on that. Now, I do have one and only one topic for this lore week. One real topic. How many of you have heard about this Glumberland thing? Oh yeah, Ninja left Twitch. I'm sure that's news somehow. Glumberland is the name of a developer who is making a game called Ooblets, which is Epic exclusive. That's not really the news. So... I honestly don't think it's news hazardous. I just don't. The man's already got it made, so... Like, this is one of those... Hey, a bird flew across the screen. What does that mean? Kind of situations. I mean, he got a big fat paycheck. He's retiring. He has a temporary exclusive contract. Do I think this will change Twitch? Not really. Do I think this will change Mixer? Not really. Do I think Mixer's a valid competitor for Twitch? No. For the record, I do have a Mixer account. You'll never see me stream on it. Get back to me in a month, and we'll see if anything's actually changed. I mean, Ninja also streamed Apex Legends, and then Apex Legends died after he stopped streaming it. So... and? Like, that's the point. It's not news now. It'll be news in a month when we see what the results are. That's my point. Ooblets! Nobody cares about Ninja. Ooblets. Okay. I've been trying very hard not to comment on the Epic Gaming Store, and I intend to continue not commenting on the Epic Gaming Store. I don't want to get into that. It's gotten a little bit too partisan of an issue, and I'm just sick of it. When they made an announcement about this, when Ooblets, that is to say Glumberland, made an announcement that they were going Epic exclusive, the Epic exclusive part had nothing to do with anything. It was the announcement that is why this is news. And I quote, "Here's what these Epic folk are doing. First, they teach every kid in the world these obnoxious dances, and now they're offering funding to game developers in exchange for PC exclusivity on their game store. This is exactly what Marx warned us about. Just imagine if other companies got it in their head to offer funding in exchange for exclusives. Would be next. Game consoles paying for games to be exclusive on their consoles. Netflix paying for exclusive shows. Newspapers paying for exclusive articles. It'd be a capitalist dystopia." I'm gonna skip through this. This is actually like 5 pages long, and it's really condescending. Let me pull out a highlight for you. "You have to install EGS, the Epic Game Store app, if you want to buy Ooblets on the PC. I know that's asking a lot, but I believe in you and your ability to download a free thing and create a user account if you haven't already done so to play Fortnite, which I know you have." Scrolling. Now, there's 2 things I want to comment on about this. Obviously, this is bad PR and this is stupid. And in fact, to be perfectly blunt, I hope the company tanks over this because this is dumb. Like, this is various levels of dumb. At the very least, I hope this guy loses his job. Yeah, seriously. But you might be thinking, Lore, why are you blaming the whole company? Well, and I quote, "Because Epic doesn't have the same market share as their competitors, they offered a minimum guarantee on sales that would match what we'd be wanting to earn if we were just selling Ooblets across all the stores. This takes a huge burden of uncertainty off of us because we now know no matter what, the game won't fail, and we won't be forced to move back in with our parents. We can just focus on making the game without worrying about keeping the lights on. The upfront money they're providing means we'll be able to afford more help and resources, start ramping up production and doing some cooler things." Now that probably sounds like a good thing. And you're right. Here's the catch. In my experience, it is a very binary situation when you take away the threat from a person. Either they become better because they don't have to worry about it, or they become worse because they don't have to worry about it. and this is part. This is not the only reason I'm mentioning this. I've done a little looking into this, and I am very not impressed with this company's response to things, because they have been really, really bad, regularly, actively accusing people of being toxic, entitled gamers. In fact, I wish I should have saved some of their Twitter posts about this for basic questions like, as a result of being one of your Patreon supporters, I was hoping that I would be able to get an access to this copy, for free, because of the fact that I've been supporting you for these months. And the response to that, and it was a well-reasoned document, I read the whole thing, the response to that was, basically, "You entitled bastard, how dare you." Hang on, let me pull up a direct quote. Let me not put words into mouths. Give me a second. See if I can find it. There it is. Hang on. Gotta get to the right section here. There it is. "No amount of difficult life experience makes it okay to demand that you get a game," was the response he gave to this person's well-reasoned post about being a Patreon supporter who was wondering if he would go ahead and get a copy at launch for being a Patreon supporter. Quote, person says, "I think there's a disconnect between how you intended this post to be received and how it came across." Response from the developer, "No, I think the toxic, entitled gamers took it as directed at them." Hang on. "What option do people have that literally cannot buy the game now due to Epic not supporting the currency they have? I wish to buy the game, but I am incapable of doing so because this does not make..." hang on. This is a weirdly constructed sentence. "I am unable to do so since I don't have the means to do so, and it does not mean I do not..." Oh my god, this is bad English. "I don't have the means to do so. Does not wanting to support Epic Games make me an entitled, angry child just because my country is not allowed to buy games in my own currency? Am I an enraged man-baby due to the fact that even if I did buy it, it would cost me more than I should?" Developer response, "You'll have to wait, I guess. Nobody owes you the game." Another developer quote here, "The content of our game reflects us in the same way not bending over backwards to baby gamers does." I could keep going. Give me a second, see if I can pull up the graph tree on for these people. Hang on. There it is. Wow, they have lost about 100 Patreons in the last month. Hang on. Actually, that would be in the last about 5 days. I'm surprised that's not more. Out of a little over 1,000. They lost to 6.5%. It says it right there. So anyways, okay, so why am I bringing this up? I mean, obviously this is just kind of a duh. The thing that I really wanted to bring up, though, is actually something that they themselves said. And I quote, "We're aware of the backlash that's been hitting games that sign with Epic. I don't expect much of our uniquely lovely community to fit into this weird anti-Epic contingent. But I figured I'd share our thoughts and have an open conversation about the issues. I've read through the arguments against Epic, and they come down to core issues. They don't have as many features as other stores. Issue 1. As a user with both Steam and EGS myself, I haven't had any issues with the EGS to buy and play games personally. But regarding the features that are still missing, that's just the way software is developed. Things take longer to develop properly than people realize, and nobody comes to the market with perfect software. I remember way back when I plopped the disc in for Half-Life 2 into my PC for the first time, I was forced to install this new thing called Steam. It was a barely functional mess back then, and anyone who used it in that time period can tell you. It's had like 15 years to improve. If it wasn't worthwhile to improve, it wouldn't have been, and you wouldn't still be using it. I'm sure there's a team of folks working on launch features at EGS, but their work depends on the platform being worthwhile for blah, 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 blah. Okay, so, that sounds valid, right? It's not. No, seriously, that really is invalid. I'm going to go ahead and borrow the... I'm going to borrow a analogy that Jim Sterling used, which is pretty similar to the analogy I was going to use here. The analogy is, imagine if someone came out with a PS4 game today that looked like a PS1 game and played like a PS1 game. And their argument for it being kind of crap was, oh, I remember how the PS1 was a barely functioning mess, and anyone who used it in that time period can tell you. It's had like 15 years to improve. Yeah, it has. Funny how that works out. I mean, seriously. No, it's an invalid argument in every sense of the word. So let's move on to the next thing. It's anti-consumer to have exclusives. This is probably the last thing that I'm willing to admit my opinion on that dwells in the controversial realm. But I am pretty anti-exclusive. And I remain firm in that one. Like, I have remained firm in that opinion for most of my life at this point. And I sincerely doubt it's going to change anytime soon. Now, I bring this up, though, because he mentions the idea of having to pay for HBO and Netflix and Hulu. Hulu isn't a big deal, even though I myself have actually pointed out several times that that is actually a real problem we're having now, right? The multiple digital distributors problem is growing and is an issue, especially on an individual consumer level. As I've said many, many times, how many of you are willing to have more than one monthly fee for a digital distribution thing, movie-wise, show-wise? How many of you are willing to have Netflix and HBO and CBS All Access and Hulu and Sky and Disney Plus that's coming out soon? Like, this is just off the top of my head. I can't remember all of them. Please forgive me. No, most people are willing to have one, maybe two. Depends on the family size. I'm probably going to go ahead and get Disney Plus because it'll probably have value for me. And that'll probably be the only one I will have. And even that I'm not 100% on. I'll be real. VRV? I don't know that one, but I'm assuming it's one of the anime ones. Crunchyroll. I know Crunchyroll. Yeah, my mom has both Netflix. Well, I guess I say my mom and her sister, so my aunt, kind of go in on Netflix and HBO Go. So that's a similar situation for them. Anyway, so he makes that argument about how it's pro-exclusive because they're doing it. Which, pro tip, if you're ever trying to make an argument, don't point to someone else and say they did it, so it's okay for me to do it. That's kind of an invalid argument to begin with. And it really doesn't, it falls apart the more you think about it, especially in a situation where the situation you're pointing to is already considered a problem. But this is a fun one. It's disappointing to see folks threatening to pirate a game just because they can't get it on the game launcher they're used to. Feeling like you're owed the product of other people's works on your terms or else you'll steal it is the epitome of the word entitlement that people use to discuss immature, toxic gamers. First of all, screw you. As in him, not you guys. You guys are great. Now, I'm bringing this up for a very specific reason. because I want to continue what he says here. I get the appeal of wanting to seek out things to get angry about. Venting anger is cathartic and natural. But let's have a little perspective of what we decide to get angry about. Look at the things going on around you and ask yourself if there might be anything just a tad more worthwhile to be upset about. Here are a few suggestions. Climate change and human rights abuse. So let's remember this is all low-stakes video game stuff we're dealing with here. Nothing to get worked up about. And I will be around on our Discord to answer questions and blah, 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 blah. That paragraph pissed me off. And I actually have a list of reasons why. No, I know, Vigilant. Now, first of all, this is also a fallacy when it comes to making an argument. If you say, well, what I am doing is not bad because there is worse, then congratulations, you have just failed at making an argument. I could really dissect why that is, but let's just say that that is, as with the previous point, an invalid argument. Because the only reason that applies is because you are there. So first of all, you are passively accepting the fact that what you're doing is bad. You're not actually saying this is bad, but by saying there is worse than what I'm doing, you see how the implication and the intonation is in the direction of what I'm doing is bad, but they're worse. I mean, Hitler. I'm not Hitler, right? Right? So, problem number one with that argument. Problem number two with that argument is the obvious logic. Just because there is something worse does not make what you are doing good. This is funny to me, because this actually came up yesterday while we were streaming Fire Emblem. And I'm not going to spoil Fire Emblem because we're done with that for right now. But that was a point we made. Because you are the lesser of two evils does not make you good. That's not in the direction that goes in. And three. Obviously, this is kind of a logical extremism situation, but if you take this argument to its logical extreme, we could come up with the worst thing that's ever been done. Let's not actually think about that. I don't want to think about really horrible things, but let's just assume that the worst thing ever done was stealing an apple. Okay, let's just make this up. We're in the Pokemon universe. And therefore, by this argument's merits, everything that is better than this horrible, horrible act of stealing an apple is thereby automatically acceptable. Because it is not stealing an apple. I'm sorry, Shikor. I really wanted the apple. No, this is funny. I actually do have an apple on my fridge right now because I want to make apple chicken later. Apple basil chicken, by the way. I know that sounds weird, but it tasted so good. This is actually the only time I'm making the same recipe a second time because I really want to try it again. Anyways. Sponsored by Basil. So, that's everything wrong with the, with the argument there. Let's bring up the next point. I'm trying to think of how to phrase this without sounding like I'm saying, duh. I want you to pretend for a moment that you go to a restaurant and you order an apple. Because this is the weirdest restaurant in the world. And they come out with an orange. Now, this isn't what you wanted. But, and imagine for a moment they don't fix it immediately. Imagine they're obstinate about it. No, it's still a fruit. What, it's a perfectly good orange. I don't see what the problem here is. And so, do you, ergo, thereby, have the right to be upset about that? Because you ordered something that you did not get, and you paid money for something that you did not get? Now, I'm bearing this down to, like, the most basic level because I think this is something that people have a tendency to forget when they construct these kind of subversive arguments. That there's nothing wrong with being upset or wanting a situation fixed that is small scale. Because that is small scale. It is. That is a small issue. it is still an issue. It still matters. It still matters to you. And this is something that I've been fighting with, I feel like, half my life. You know, this is, and I'm just going to say it, this is the Mass Effect 3 thing all over again. You remember how many people were like, oh, you have no right to be upset about the Mass Effect 3 thing? In all sincerity, all these arguments that and all the arguments he made are the exact same arguments people were making against people who are upset about Mass Effect 3. And I remember that one bit, you know, oh, well, there's worse things going on than a bad ending to a game. I remember people making that exact argument. Because apparently, and I know this is going to sound astonishing, but people actually gave a damn about things that actually mattered to them, even though they were small scale. Because again, it wasn't that large of an issue, really, the Mass Effect 3 situation. But it was an issue. And I feel like that's a point that a lot of people tend to miss. Which brings me to my second point. The variance of significance is what I have listed down for this one. Now, we as human beings tend to be very personal individuals. We tend to think in smaller scale, just in general. That means, the way I like to analogize this is it feels like the focus of our vision varies depending on our perspective. Now, I know that sounds like a cyclical statement, but let me put this in a different way. A lot of people tend to magnify things that happen to them on the individual level because of the fact that that contains a large percentage of the things they care about on a daily basis. It's not like someone who is upset about this gaming situation isn't upset about human rights issues or isn't upset about climate change. It's just that climate change is not really a huge aspect of their day-to-day life. Whereas a game they were really looking forward to and were very excited about is. Now, you could say there's something wrong with humanity if that's true, and that's a very debatable topic that goes into controversial territory, so we're just going to put that over there. But, as Takoida so accurately points out, those things tend to be more personal. So even regardless of the percentage of your focus that is on them, which is part of what I'm talking about, it is something that tends to be more... It's tends to be something that cuts deeper, basically. Just like Trafen. Trafen cuts me very deeply every time. It's horrible. I accept the wounds. I embrace them. I become the wound killer. I will not fear the wound killer. Thank you very much, Trafen. Much appreciated as always. Thank you. If you happen to know where you want to put that, let me know. Otherwise, we'll stab you. But yeah, exactly, Kira. This is actually related to the distance theory that I've tossed out several times. The idea that it's easy to push a button or give an order. It's very difficult to strangle someone to death with your bare hands. And I know that sounds like a violent, extreme example, but that's not a... How do I phrase this? That's not... That's just life. There we go. Let's just put it that way. That is just life. The more distanced you are to the act you are taking, the easier it is to take that act. Now, I point that out to violence usually because it's a way of exemplifying how far gone someone is or how horrible someone is. But point remains. Ergo, the idea of something that you can see every day is something that's a lot easier for you to understand and conceptualize than something that you don't really have any interaction with or perspective on. If you see a graph that just has a number slowly increasing, and that's the number of people who are having lower back pain, then that graph just is not as connected to you as your significant other or your brother or your child or whoever, someone who literally lives with you, who you see every day, who has lower back pain. Which brings me to my final point, and I've put that down for Mario Maker 2. Thank you again, Trafen. The final point here is, how much power do you have to prevent human right abuse in the world? Damn it, Console Hot. Fix it then! I shouldn't even laugh. This is a horrible topic. Basically none. We have effectively no ability to do anything about these kind of problems. Yeah, we can get involved on an individual level and on a local level, which might do something, but we don't really have any power to do that. How much power do you, the individual, have to affect climate change? To fix it, to just go. Other than Console Hot, the Great Lich. No wonder he's not fixing it. He doesn't care. He's a lich. He doesn't care if the world gets boiled or whatever. All right. How much ability do you have to change or affect a game's release on an indie game specifically, its release on which it releases on and how it releases? How much power do you have to affect that? Depends is an accurate answer here. Now, obviously, I'm phrasing this question wrong, and that's my fault. I apologize. The point I was trying to make is that smaller and more personalized issues are things you have more of an ability to change. And in my experience, human beings tend to have more investment in things they have more of an impact on. Bob over there can't do jack about climate change. He may be upset about it. He may be trying to, he want it fixed, or he want to consider it to be a real issue. But he can't do anything about it. But he can reach out to the developer of this guy, reach out to the individual of this game, reach out to this individual guy, and say, hey, what's going on? Why did you do this? Now, in reality land, yeah, we're not going to be able to change or affect this, because this game is coming out on Epic. I already told you why this game is coming out on Epic, because they have a guaranteed sales figure. They no longer have to try or care. I already talked about that. There it is, right there. The investment we're getting up front will allow us to ramp up development, and we don't have to worry about keeping the lights on, blah, blah, blah. So they don't give a damn about responses or reactions. But you could probably understand why a lot of people would have more of an investment on an individual thing, because they feel like they might have more impact on it. Let me go back to the restaurant example. How much power do you have to change whether you get that orange, to force them to take that orange back and get an apple instead? I suppose this varies from restaurant to restaurant and country to country and all that. But the point is, it's easier to get more upset about that kind of a situation because you have the ability to do something about it. I'll use a direct example. So one time I went to a chain, I'm not going to name the chain, and they gave us completely the wrong order. It was most likely an order that was intended for someone else. So what we did is we called them in and said, hey, we got the wrong order. And they were like, oh my gosh, you're right, come on back in. And we went back in and we got our correct order and some bonus things for free to make up for the excuse. Then we went home and ate our actual order. We had, within our individual ability, without even going that far out of our way, the power to change that situation. I bring that up, again, because in my experience, people are so much more inclined to care about something they can affect, which may or may not be a matter of individual delusion, admittedly. But I bring that up because for situations like this, which are so much more small scale, it could help, in addition to everything else, explain why people tend to be more invested. Oh yeah, final point, while I'm on the subject. This is just the realm of opinion at this point, but I don't think there's anything wrong with caring about something personal like this. Like, I don't know, Star Trek Voyager. Right? Is there anything wrong with that? I mean, again, this is an opinion point at this point. I suppose I should phrase that as a more direct question. Do you think there's anything wrong with caring about something on a more personal level like that? Something small, something that doesn't really matter. With all the horrible and terrible crap that happens in the world, why would you care about Star Trek Voyager? What's wrong with you? Why would you care about whether or not the Ifrit cutscene happens at the beginning of FF15? Which, after some reanalysis, I stand by that negative, by the way. I did think about it, though. I guess this pisses me off mostly because I've seen this argument for years. I brought up Star Trek Voyager on purpose. How many of you remember when Voyager was coming out? I mean, I do, obviously. And that was back when... Which one, Velvetrix? Oh, I think I know which one you're talking about. That was when message boards and, like, email chains were a lot more common, and when it came to that, and that was back when a lot of the actual producers, as I talked about this with Deep Space Nine as well, were actually paying attention to viewer feedback, because it was much more small scale, so they could talk to 100 people, right? And 100 people are easier to talk to than, you know, if you did that nowadays, you'd get like 15,000 people trying to yammer it up, and it's hard to respond to that. But back then, it was so small, people would take individual feedback in mind. And one of the most common feedbacks I got about Voyager back then in said message boards was, "What's wrong with you? It's just a TV show." And that phrase right there is the phrase I've been fighting against for most of my life. It's just blank. I hate that phrase. I really do. Because I've never heard it said in any way that isn't intentionally dismissive and insulting. Yeah, it's just a kid's show. It's just a video game. What's wrong with you guys? I do agree, by the way, with what several people have said. I think Kira said it, and I know Haz just said it. It's possible to care about multiple things at once. I know, shocking. I think If and Bud said that, too. Hate that phrase. And like I said, I've been fighting against that phrase my whole life. Damn it. Oh. Yes, that was a while ago, Sildeer, but yeah. I was trying to explain to him the relevance of care, and he's like, well, but it's my car. It's just a phrase. I mean, it's just a... every now and again, I just want to take someone who is a really artsy, fancy person who says, it's just a game. And I say, I agree. It's just a painting. You know, to whatever they care about. It's just a song. It's just a play. What? Why do you care? It's just a play. And just watch their mind eat itself as they try to defend the argument against their own argument, you know? Actually, I've heard that one too, Mike's. It's just a game when it comes to sports. Yeah, the Mona Lisa is just a painting. What? Who cares? It's just a couple guys driving around a circle for a while. I mean, it's a really weird shaped circle, but you know, whatever. Why do you care? I think I've made my point. Sorry for belaboring this so much. This really did upset me, though. I mean, again, I've been kind of following the Epic thing for a while, but this attitude just made me want to smack the guy. That's also part of why I started off with a lot of his comments and quotes of just how wonderful of a human being he was. I say he, I'm assuming it's a he, I have no idea. Whatever. That is actually all I've got in our policy of new things. Oh yeah, actually no, that's not true. I do have one last thing. I meant to say this right up front. For those of you not aware, we do have the floodgates open for next year's Ruminations, Friday Ruminations. Those have been open since the 1st, so I guess like 4 days at this point. Fair Rex. So for those of you who are patrons, who are supporters, you can be like, wham, and pick a thing. Now, just to explain this in brief, on the off chance you haven't checked the Patreon video. First of all, this is your warning. Go check the Patreon video. The link to the spreadsheet is in that video. It is on Patreon for patrons only. Please do not link it anywhere else. As usual, the way it works is we're going to have a full month of nominations. That's this month, the month of August. And all of you get to nominate one thing. Just one. Not 15, not 30, not 2, 1. And then we will get to the voting phase in September based on all of this stuff. We've already got a pretty decent list here. Looks like 54 nominations so far, if I'm reading this right. Please check the list first before nominating something. I've already had to delete several repeats. Now, to be very 100% clear, we are not in the voting phase. I've heard this question like 7 times in the last few days. We are not voting. Not until September. In September 1st, we will go ahead and open up the voting phase. That will be done in a completely different format. There will be a post on Patreon saying vote here, and you will vote on that post. And by responding to that post, I will get email notifications of those votes, and I will use those to keep track of the votes. Please do not edit your vote. If you do, I don't get a notification that you've edited your vote. There'll also be a video explaining all this in about a month. But yeah, these next 2 months, the floodgates are open. If you have any thoughts, comments, questions, now is a great time since I'm sitting right here and I can answer you right now. I should mention that, as usual, my biggest supporters get to basically just pick something. And so far, I have heard a response back from 2 of those people. So the 2 Ruminations that are locked in 100% happening next year are the MCU Phase 3, all 9 movies, and Days Gone, the recent PS4 biker zombie game. And that's it. Like I said, I only heard back from the 2 people so far. But those are the ones that are locked in at the moment. Oh, by the way, if you're paying attention, I just mentioned 9 movies. I actually had a discussion with the person who specifically requested the MCU Phase 3. And to be clear, we will be terminating it with Endgame. He and I both agree that the Phase 3 really ended with Endgame, so that's the final movie we'll be doing for that one. I can even tell you right now roughly when those will come out. If you give me a sec. Now we'll use this. So the Endgame Rumination will come out on December 25th, 2020. And the 9 weeks leading up to that will be just MCU stuff. No, Venters. I guess that's it. I'm not saying any questions about this, so if anybody has any thoughts, comments, questions, just keep poking me. I'm going to go ahead and jump off the local recording.